Okay, so those of you who don't know me or it's your first time with us, I'm Annabelle Munson, and welcome to a special Encore presentation of a Universal Weather and Aviation webinar we hosted back in June. I'll be your host and moderator for today's session. With everyone's plates being as full as they are these days with the strong and steady travel demands so many of you are experiencing firsthand, we had a good number of you ask for another chance to see a live demo of Feasibility-IQ since you weren't able to make it to the first one of these webinars back in June. So we did ask one of our Feasibility-IQ experts to carve out a little more time for a quick 30-minute review today, showing some examples of how Feasibility-IQ is working for operators in the current environment. So as we continue to let some people in the next few minutes, let me set the stage for you on what we're here to do with Feasibility-IQ. Like I mentioned when we opened, we're taking another look at Feasibility-IQ and some of its standout features that directly tackle time savings and efficiency in the trip planning process. The Feasibility-IQ platform was designed to help simplify the collection and organization of the utterly massive load of detailed info you need to sort through when putting together your trip plans, even just to see if a trip is feasible and can happen. And then, of course, on the side of trip execution, making sure your stakeholders get the specific info they need for that mission to be successful. Add to that the backdrop of what's happening worldwide and what we're all living through. It's no secret. Travel is in a very unique place right now, and private aviation is in the thick of it for sure. Super high volume and every point along the service delivery chain being squeezed post-pandemic for all the reasons we've heard a million times already. Labor, supply, pent-up demand, and along with it, freight expectations. It's the storm we knew was probably brewing, and wow, has it blossomed. With that context in mind, our Feasibility-IQ expert, Monica Campos, is going to help make sure you get a look at how the platform can help you manage not only this crazy surge period, but how it can be a tool you can count on for saving you time and in that your day-to-day routine, essentially, in your operation. All right, so let me introduce Monica and get her on spotlight here with us. Hi, Monica. I'm happy to introduce Monica Campos, a senior leader in our trip support division, currently directly managing the Tango team of mission advisors, and a key subject matter expert that's been super involved in the development of Feasibility-IQ since its inception. We are looking forward to your demo, Monica, along with the highlights of the newest features just released for FIQ, because there have been a few since June, in fact. We should note that today's demo will be on the online version of the platform, but the iPad version is also now available, so we'll touch on that a little bit later. Thanks for joining us, Monica. Can you get us started with your overview and insights?
Thank you so much, Annabelle. Absolutely. It is really great to be with you guys. And I know that everybody's time is of the essence. So I will jump right into the platform. When you first come into UVGo, it will bring you into the dashboard. Just click on over to the Feasibility-IQ icon, and it'll present you with this screen here. This screen will give you your last previous searches and then popular searches so that you can glean from everybody's experience and use what's at your fingertips to make things go a lot faster. So let's say that you are going on about your day and you get a call from the EA or the pilot saying that your principal passenger has a meeting in London. And you usually like to go to Stansted, so you're going to want to go to EGSS, and then he lets you know that since they're already in Europe and everybody is going to the Med, he's going to want to go down to LGAV. So you put in LGAV, and then from there, he's going to grab the yacht in Greece, and he's going to want to go down to Istanbul and be picked up in Istanbul. You know that you want to go from an airport of entry because you're coming from Greece. And you don't want to drive too terribly far, so let's set, a nice little radius from where you want to look for airports, but you're going to be in a big plane, so you want a decent-sized runway, and you let it know what city you want to go to, and it will search the locations in that city because they didn't tell you what airport they wanted to go to, they just told you that they wanted to go to Istanbul. So this is really useful in those airports that they just tell you a city and you're not really very familiar, and you can go and look for the criteria that you're looking for to be able to find the airport that you want to use. From there, APAC is starting to open up. He's had his cruise through the Med. He's back to get on business. Let's go down to Hong Kong and start our trip. At this point, you can see that it loads all of the airports that you've chosen. It also tells you all of the high-level quick information that you need to know: landing permit, slots, PPRs, and security. This is really helpful when, again, you're looking at one city and you're not really sure where you want to go, and you can glance in a moment, which one do you want to use? This one needs PPRs, this one doesn't, and you can make a decision quickly. You can also change the handler at this stage, and you can also change your FAR part either by leg or for the whole trip. It's very important to load crew and passenger nationalities because without this information, you won't be able to get the full, I'm sorry, you won't be able to get the full information of the health requirements and the entry requirements. So let's say we have a Central African passenger and a Mexican passenger and a British passenger. Notice I use ISO codes, not UK, but British, but GB. And you can quickly add them to all the legs or remove them one by one, however you prefer. Click Get Into, and it will quickly gather all of the information for all of these airports and present it on one screen. You can tab along the top to change airports quickly, and that will give you quick access to any point. So once you're on a tab, you can still look at any other airport and you'll stay on that tab. On this page, I really like to point out parking, because parking is something that we've really worked hard to get together with the handlers and find out in the airport and see what is your situation at this airport. Do you normally have parking problems? Is it easy? And we all know how complicated the Med is right now. So I use LGAV as an example. We know that they have 1 day of parking at the moment, but they've gone so far as to help us find out where could we go otherwise. What months are the busy months that they're expecting to have those parking problems? So if you're planning this in April and you're looking forward ahead in May, and right here it doesn't have any restrictions at the moment, you'll know in May it's going to be different or could potentially be different. So things to keep in mind to help you plan and know, have all of that information available to be able to advise the passengers. We also offer operating hours, customs and arrival departure logistics. I love this part. This is really a fan favorite. In the crew and passenger logistics, we include the customs declaration information, what is needed, and whether or not the handler can assist you, because sometimes they can't and you have to carry your own Gendex on board. A little bit inconvenient, but it's good to know these things beforehand so you don't get there and are surprised by a need that you didn't know you had. But here is the exciting part. Recommended arrival times for crew and passengers, because how many times have we not really been really familiar with an airport and you don't really know what time to tell the passengers to arrive? Do they need to be there 2 hours before or 10 minutes before? And what we don't want is for them to be sitting around waiting for an hour and a half that they could have spent at the beach. And we also don't want them running through the airport trying to catch the plane to get their slots into Naples. So this makes you look like an all-star, so you can advise them with good time how far in advance they need to be at the airport, and you look like you were completely in the know. We have airport level of permissions for slots and PPRs, flight planning information. We really paid a lot of attention at including the PCN numbers, because we know that those are important in planning what airport, what runway we are arriving to. We also offer the flight plan alternates in the way that we list them, in the order that we use them at Universal, and any ATC information. Events is not a brand new feature, but it's been newly renovated. So this is one of the new things that we've included. Before, we had events kind of coming from a bunch of different directions. They weren't very well organized. They didn't have a ton of information. So we've gathered city events and country events. The city events will probably only affect that airport. Will tell you when they begin, when they end. If it's something that you need to start planning ahead of time, like the World Cup, like the Olympics, Davos, will give you a start date for when is the best time to start looking or planning that trip. What kind of special considerations need to be made? Do you have to start thinking about hotels? Do you have to start thinking about slots? Is it just a high traffic time that you want to keep in mind? What kind of considerations do you need to plan for? The description, if we have one for that event, so there's really no description of the Greek islands peak season, but the Acropolis Rally is a motorsports event. A type, a category if it's sports, if it's seasonal, if it's annual, and a URL if one is available, so that you can go and find more information should the principal be looking for more information, or the pilot, so you just want to be aware so that you can give them that information moving forward. Country events, again, these are more broad and they will cover the entire country. The peak island season, it affects the whole country because especially for aviation, you're going to have to reposition and go. And so again, it lists the start date, the end date, all of the same information. If you see this globe, it's a world event. And that just means that it's something that affects the whole world that they just want you to have in mind is coming up. It can be a holiday, it can be a worldwide event, it can be really anything. We just wanted the capability to state this is something that's happening all over the world that you should be aware of. And it may or may not affect your particular location precisely, but there is a large population all over the world that does celebrate this certain event. And so we wanted everybody to be aware moving forward in case it was going to affect where you were going.
And a quick question for you, Monica. I know you're about to transition to another area, but we're covering a lot already. And I know from having the privilege of actually being side by side with you at trade shows when she's doing these demos live, which is a really neat experience to get to see her engage with you guys directly. But one of the common questions I heard everybody say about this point as you're going through the demo, they go, wow, this is a lot of information. How does Universal manage all of this? How do they curate it? How are you keeping up with it? What's the background on that?
Thank you. That is a great question because we do curate it a lot. This is actually the information that the mission advisors use to do their consultation, to plan their trips. When you call in and you ask a question of the mission advisors, this is what they go to. When they're planning their trips and they're trying to see what's going on with a trip that you called in, whether or not they're speaking to you directly at the moment, they're basing it off of here to make sure that everything that they have planned is working and moving and going forward. We also do data requests of our vendors at a regular interval. So regularly we're asking the handlers on the ground to update our information. We send out surveys and request information from them to make sure that we have the latest and greatest. And we also have our own network of Universal Aviation locations that are responsible for 200 locations that have access to this tool and come in to see that is accurate, give us feedback, and make sure that everything is up to speed. So it's something that we are very serious about, the data quality, and we curate it on a daily basis.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
So the handler information is particular to the handler that you chose at the front of the screen. So if you had chosen a different handler, it would have given their information instead. We have parking facilities and overview. Parking here is another fan favorite. It is really good information that we have asked of the handlers to make sure that we know what can be expected when they get on the ground. So if your passengers want to know what's coming, what does it look like there? What do I have to do? Is it clearance on the aircraft? Is it clearance in a terminal? How long does it take to get there? Do they have a ramp side shuttle? Is it wheelchair accessible? This one right here is one of my favorites because I just think it's one of those pieces of information that is crucial that you don't really think about until you're in a position that you're not so sure about. So passport handling, who's going to come and collect the passports? Is it going to happen plainside? Is it going to happen in the GA terminal? Do you take it with you or does an agent come and take it from you? If an ununiformed person comes on the plane and says, I'm going to take your passport with me to that office over there, should you let them? Because if you should and you don't, you're in trouble. And if you shouldn't and you do, you're still in trouble. So this is a really good piece of information that we've gathered from our handlers on the ground that will let us know so that you can know what the passengers and the crew can expect, especially for something as important as a passport document. We also have the location that the transportation can meet the passengers and the address that you can give them. And then the same for departure, meeting location and address, so that you can get to the passengers and look like a hero. We've also gathered all of the ground service equipment. Do they have a GPU? Do they have an air start cart? Do they have a K-loader? Do they have ground stairs? All of that we've pulled together and put it in one place so you can quickly look and see if they have that available. And if there's something that you need that they don't, you can ask. You can say ahead of time, hey, we're going to need ABC. Can you get a hold of one for us? And that way you can start planning if you see something that you are going to need that maybe isn't on this list. Also, additional information for the handler. Country information begins in permits, because permits are a trip killer, and we all want to know, do we need a permit to get there? If you do need a permit right off the bat, we'll let you know. If you don't need a permit right off the bat, or if your location is right 100% you don't need a permit, we'll also say no permit required. but a lot of places will say permit may be required. And the reason that we put it that way is because we really wanted to make it an easy process for you, where you wouldn't have to worry about inserting a lot of information or doing too much to include and just gain access into the process. So with this information, you can see under what conditions is a permit required. And that way you can quickly just put your trip stuff in, gain entrance, and if a permit's required, then you can look at the information for that particular place. APIS requirements are there, none for Greece, but if you were going to Finland, you would have some, and also any additional information going into that country.
Got it. All right. So Monica, I know you mentioned, so here's why I want to make sure we get to these, because the events was a new enhancement that we talked about already. That's already been released. That one's active. What else is there since June or that's newer that we should highlight?
Okay, perfect. Events was a new thing, and it was definitely something that we improved upon. And those of you who were with us in June could see that this was also there. It's an improvement that we made back then for restrictions not being US centered, covering the world. If you are a Russian national and you're trying to go to Greece, then you wouldn't be able to go as a Russian national if you were a crew member, a registry, an operator, or a passenger. And also the NOTAM ID and a link if we were to have it. But something else that we have added is itinerary restrictions. There we go, LTBA. Not everybody has itinerary restrictions. As we can see, it was a fabulous thing. But some countries really do have restrictions on where you can go there from, or where you can go once you're leaving there, or where you can overfly. So we see here that going into Turkey, had the boss said, pick me up in Cyprus, and then we're going to go into Istanbul, you can tell him ahead of time. Can't do that. Or if you have it further on down the line, if you had a location that you can see your itinerary and view these locations where you're arriving. So in this case, if you're arriving to Turkey, you cannot depart from Cyprus. And if you're departing from Turkey, you cannot arrive into Cyprus. Or if you were overflying a location that had restrictions, that would also be listed. So that is one thing that we've taken for the entire world and put into one place. So maybe we don't know your goings and comings, but you do, and you can see here quickly if there's going to be any problems with the schedule that you have anticipated. Health requirements is mostly COVID information. It is, honestly, it's what has dominated the world for 2 years. So we have focused on that, but we do also include other health requirements here. We begin with general information and domestic measures. That's if it belongs to the aircraft, or if you're already in the country as any nationality, what would you have to do? One of the new things that we added, not this cycle, but a cycle before. So those of you who were with us in June, this was already here, but it's something that we do maintain. If you're going to a country that cares about travel history, and we didn't find it in Europe because Europe has opened up hugely. They don't have that kind of restriction anymore, but APAC is starting to open now. And so APAC is going to go through a lot of the things that we went through in the West, as far as restrictions coming in and plans for vaccinations and all of the things that we've already been through. They're going to start doing as we see them open more and more. So this travel history restrictions lets you see at a glance, does this country have restrictions for a place where you have traveled to? How far back do you need to look? And then the countries that are affected, or possibly the level, because some countries were maintaining it by level. In this case, if I'd been to Taiwan, China, or Macau, I can see for crew or passengers, in this case for passengers, their status, vaccinated or unvaccinated, and what section is affected or is going to be different from the requirements for anybody who hasn't been to one of these 3 countries. And since it's for passengers, we'll skip right on over there, and we embedded it within the information so that in that section you can find the countries that are affected, because maybe not every country that was listed had entry requirement changes. Maybe only China and Macau had it. So that way, if Taiwan was missing and Taiwan is where he would been, you don't have to check this section. You can just continue to scroll to find where Taiwan is affected. But we again place, so you don't have to rely on your memory, exactly what those restrictions are, again, for passenger or crew, vaccinated or unvaccinated. And in this case, it will only list those entry requirements because that's the section that we're looking in. We also gathered test sites for everyone so that if you're in a location where the passenger says, I want to go to this location and you need a test before you leave there and you don't have them and you're already on the road, you can find that information quickly. And we included this section, Vaccinations Other, because we do maintain this information. Zika, Ebola, yellow fever are still very real and very considered, especially when traveling to countries where that is a concern. We've also added monkeypox to the list. So we maintain this information. We want to make sure that you are aware and prepared for not just COVID, even though that has been the dominant disease that has been affecting us lately. Other things are still out there, and if they're going to affect your trip into that location, we want to give you access to that information. We have above wing services is hotels. We can tell you, nobody's gone to Hong Kong, but what kind of discount Universal get, how many people we set up there last year, how many people this year. Anybody who was with us in June, you saw that this said 25 total nights to all of last year's 26. And in a month, we've added almost 30 in just a little over a month's time. So the Med has definitely been a busy place. I'm sure you are all well experienced in that. Catering access to Air Culinaire and accessing Gervania. For the security information, we have it broken down by city, by country, giving you the latest events so that you can be aware of what's going on in the country as a whole as well. And here is a hidden gem, local intel. It's something that is available or you can send it with a feasibility guide, but we don't do it unless it's been requested because it is quite a bit of information and it really extends the document quite a bit. So we have it here. It is definitely useful information, but we don't send it with a feasibility guide except on request. So this is the information powered by Crisis 24. In fact, all of the security information had been. We are not the experts in security, so we have partnered with those who are, and we have this information available here telling us culture gestures, information, how to not offend your guests and the people that you're going to go meet with, environmental considerations, further information on security, transportation. Do they have Lyft? Do they have Uber? What is their version? And if they do, is it trustworthy? Do you want to be using it? Should you take a bus? Should you take a taxi? Should you meet them at the bus station, or can you pick them up at a stop on any corner? How about taxis? Do you have to go to a stand? Are they all trustworthy? Is there a particular phone number of a very trusted company that you can use regularly? And also financial information. Same story. Should you use the ATMs? Should you use the exchange houses? Should you only do business inside of a bank? So all of this is really great information that Crisis 24 has offered to us in our partnership that we've made available to you so that you can have not only the operational side of things, but also an aspect that is really important to the planning of your trip that we are admittedly not the experts in, so we partner with those who are. And in the same vein, we have also partnered with Thematic. We know that a lot of you use Thematic to determine what visa requirements are for your passengers and for your crew members. And so we partner with them as well so that you can have it all together in one location. It'll give you all of the information for crew. And remember that we had 2 different nationalities, so you can scroll along the top. This was available also in the COVID information. It'll give you the requirements for passengers. And again, it changes depending on the nationality. And then my favorite part for the thematic information is the country information, especially in the UK. I just find it so amusing. It gives you the currency, import and export rules, airport taxes, and customs. Customs is really, really insightful. A lot of information here. It'll give you what you can import, what's considered not prohibited, what's allowed. Arms and munition. This is a huge one for those of you who have hunters as your passengers. What do you need to do when you're not necessarily going to hunt in the UK, but you're bringing guns and ammunition because you're either going to a hunting trip or you're coming from a hunting trip? The last thing we want is for anybody to end up in a British prison because we didn't know that you had a bullet in your bag. So these are things that they've gathered for us that we can use to just even start opening the conversation with the handler and find out exactly what needs to be done before we get there. And then this is why I like the UK one so much, because I did not know. A lot of people or a lot of countries require passports for cats and dogs, but in the UK, apparently ferrets are a big thing. So Pet information, that is just huge. I know a lot of you have probably dealt with it. I know the mission advisors on my team have dealt with it quite a bit. What to do when the principal wants to take his dog and his guest wants to take her cat, and now you have a menagerie on the plane. What do? We want to make sure that the pets are well, that everything goes smoothly, that you have everything that you need, because the last thing anybody wants is added stress or for the passenger to not have an excellent experience. And that is really the name of the game: information, 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 to make sure that you are prepared and have everything that you need to make their lives good. Because when they win, you win. When you win, we win. And that is what we all want. And the final section that we have is NOTAMs. We break them down by COVID, airport, and FUR. And we have them by airspace restrictions, or just categorized, because especially at the airport, if you don't care about the facility, but you want to make sure that the runway is looking good, we all know we can be reading NOTAMs for years and not end. So we really focus on really the showstoppers, the ones that will make it so you cannot operate into that airport. And we use keywords to do that. Anything that says closed, closing, closure, prohibited, prohibit, unusable, unserviceable, those are the NOTAMs that we'll pull into this section, all the sections in FIQ, and categorize them so that you know what it is that is working and what is not. And that is all of the information that we offer, Annabelle.
And again, a lot. So I know you have a couple of features that kind of on back to the amount of information that you're able to collate together via Feasibility-IQ. Tell me about the custom report, and then after that, there's a way to highlight specific things that you can see at a glance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so starting with the custom report, let's say the EA calls you and says, you know what, I've seen the feasibility guide, or even you've given me all this information. It's fantastic. I love it. But I really, really right now just need to know, what do the passengers need to know? What do they need to get in? We're not going to bother them with COVID stuff, because that's a lot of information as well. We've already briefed that separately. So they just want to know, what can they expect when they get on the ground? So we can give them the arrival and departure logistics information. They want it only for the UK, just for the sake of the conversation. So we can send them the crew and passenger logistics information. And this, we'll give it to LGAV. We'll give it for this one. Click this button right here, the Add to Custom Report, and that will add it. You'll see right here, this category has been added to your custom report. And we also want to give them the crew and passenger logistics from the handler information, because this is that long section where it tells you what to expect with customs and the accessibility and all of that good stuff. So we'll add that as well. And once you go to create your report, it'll ask you to create a report. This is a different view right here, but you can create it there, or a custom report here. It gives you this acknowledgement, because this is just saying, realize that you are not including everything. There's some vital information that you're leaving out, but you already knew that, because you knew that the EA only asked for the information for the passengers in this one location. So you generate your report, and I have already created one, and it is here. So I will create my report. Okay, 15 of them came up. And we see that rather than being, in the double digits, it's only 4 pages, because it was really just the information that we requested for that particular client, for that particular request, that precise bit of information. The other question that you asked was about the important information. So we like to make the really, really highlighted showstopper things bubble to the top so that you can find them quickly and easily. And then we do that by way of, on the ICAO selection page, we also have, like I said in the beginning, you can quickly see if you need permits, if you need slots, PPRs, and the security rating. So that's the most important information that we find at that point. And then within the actual UI, we also have it at the top of every page. Is it an airport of entry? What's the name of the handler? What's the FAR type that you chose? And the security rating, landing permit requirement, ARO slots, APIS, and the PPR status. Not status, but are they required? So that's where we keep the most important bits of information.
So we can say it's at a glance, essentially, for managing your information while in the application. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Monica. Really appreciate the overview, as always. Thank you for sharing that in a very short amount of time. What I want to move to now, speaking of short amount of time, we had a couple of questions that came in in advance. So we're going to address those first. And then if there's anything that hasn't been addressed in the chat or we want to highlight from the chat, please go ahead, and if you do have a question you're holding on to, go ahead and drop it in the chat. I know Timothy and Justin are working there in the background on those. So Monica, I'm going to keep you on spotlight for a second, and I'm going to add Justin. Hey, Justin, welcome. All right. And while we're going to go to some of those first questions that got asked. Thank you for sending those in advance. It really helps us prepare for these sessions. Okay, so the first question, this one, Justin, is for you. Kind of the big obvious one. So how much does a subscription to FIQ or Feasibility-IQ cost?
Well, the subscription price is based on the number of users that your flight department signs up. The best place to start is to go ahead and do the free trial, and your account manager will be in touch with you to discuss your specific scenario. And Timothy, if you don't mind, can you drop that free trial back in the chat so it's at the top or bottom rather?
Done deal.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Justin. Timothy. Okay, Monica. All right. So how about feedback? But Monica, one thing, I know we try to anticipate and we gather feedback from our mission advisors who are using it daily. We gather feedback from clients because, of course, they're the ones executing those trips live out in the field. But how does a Feasibility-IQ user, how can they give feedback or suggestions on the tool?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen again. We have incorporated this button right here is our feedback loop. So if you go somewhere and you find that your experience is different from what we said, or it's changed, or whatever the case is, you can let us know it's either incorrect data, incomplete data, a typo, or whatever else it was that you want to see updated in the profile. Then you can add your comments. And when you submit that, it goes directly to the group that is responsible for that section of the platform. We'll take it, we will verify it, and we will update it as required.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that. And Monica, also for you, I know we mentioned this up front that we were previewing everything today on the online version, but the iPad version was now available. Any details to share there?
Yes, ma'am. The iPad is fully functional with everything but PDF production. So all of the information that you find on the UI, everything you find online, you can find in the iPad app. The only difference will be that you can't create a custom report or a feasibility guide, but that is probably part of the reason that you're using the iPad is because you're on the go and you're not really looking to send a product. So all of the information is active and current, and we have begun to work on the iPhone app, so that will be available too in the future. And we continue to progress and to change things and improve.
Got it. Okay, so good news on the mobile front there. Okay, I think that covers most of the pre-submitted questions. Timothy, I know you've been working in the background on anything that's come through chat. Justin, you as well. Thank you for that. Is there anything we want to elevate up to our experts, Justin and Monica, from the live chat? Apparently we've covered it all, and it's amazing.
Well, I mean, most of the chat items, it's actually kind of funny because when Monica was going through her demo, it was right when the questions were being asked, those sections. So that's great. So very timely, as Justin says.
Thank you so much, Timothy. And I got a couple of direct messages, some people that popped in and out and missed the part about pricing. So Justin, if you could repeat that part, just so that we had people who were inevitably, trust me, we've all had interruptions when we're trying to listen in to a session. So if you could just give everyone that feedback again, that would be great.
Yeah, so this is a subscription-based service. The best way to get pricing is the pricing is variable depending on how many users from your flight department sign up. The best thing to do is to sign up for the free 15-day trial. And then from there, your account manager will be in touch with you and can discuss pricing for your specific operation.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thank you. Hopefully I got everybody. I know I missed some people, but I was getting these DMs in the background and I wanted to hit as many of those as possible. So thank you. All right. So that wraps us up for today. I really want to thank Monica, especially for her efforts today to prepare another demo. Definitely your expertise always shines through, and it's a pleasure. And it is fun having seen her do these in person with customers. Her passion for the product and getting feedback from customers is palpable. It's really exciting. So if you ever get a chance, have a Monica demo in person. It's really fun. But thank you again for your time today. Like Justin just mentioned, you can sign up for that 15-day free trial. Timothy put the link in, or if you just want more information on the product as well and you're still researching, the link to Feasibility-IQ information on our website is also available in the chat. You can also reach out to your account manager, really, for any questions you have, needless to say, about any of our services, but Feasibility-IQ in particular. In addition, you can reach us here at operationalinsight@univway.com, our email address for the webinar series. We can make sure your questions get to the right people or your inquiries, so don't feel shy about reaching out to me directly there. The video link, as I mentioned, for today's tips, tricks, and latest demo will be out tomorrow in a direct email to you. So if you need to share it with somebody else, please feel free to. Otherwise, take care, and I hope to see all of you soon for if we do another FIQ demo in the future or for our regular Ops Update webinar program. Thanks again, and bye now.